This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. From the big plays to life's everyday moments, see it all in sharp focus with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIK.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the Soonerscoop.com studios. Another week, more to get into. A lot with the OU basketball program. A couple questions about Joe Castiglione, as well as some Kevin Wilson news. He's coming back to the fold, joining Oklahoma's football staff as an offensive analyst. So, Georgie boy, how was the weekend?
It was a good weekend, other than the OU basketball game.
Man,
that was
what
tough.
a miserable performance. What a miserable program right now. Headed down to Florida on Tuesday, obviously, but it is what it is. Let's just get into all of it. I think that you can catch everything that we have in terms of our thoughts on the disaster that was blowing a 20-point lead with or a 20-point lead. They probably would have blown that too. Blowing a 5-point lead with 20 seconds left on Saturday against LSU, a bad LSU team at that. A lot of questions about the direction of the program, right?
Yeah.
We lay it all out there kind of in the Hoops Report with Bob Przybylo as well. You can see that here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. But plenty of questions to get into. Obviously, we take them from the Crimson Corner, the largest website community online for Oklahoma fans. And this is where we'll start from Nasty Nate 66. In the thread titled, "If Porter Moser is fired, who would be your dream replacement?" Nasty Nate says, realistically, get a couple of the Houston guys and figure out how to get the Rock Creek project done. Young guy to build around and a new arena that gets the fans excited. It's really that simple. If it doesn't work in 4 to 5 years, you get to bring another guy into a new arena, and I hope a more developed college sports landscape. Sounds great in theory, but...
Yeah. That would be awesome.
I don't know if that's going to happen now with the mayoral race. I know that certainly has taken a hit to the entertainment district.
I don't feel good about that happening now or in the future. I think that OU is going to maybe have to pivot. I could be wrong. Maybe something changes. Maybe they find a way to fund it themselves or a different way to fund it, and maybe it comes back. But the new arena project out at Rock Creek just feels kind of dead right now with the new mayor. And if this thing goes to a public vote, I just don't feel confident that it's going to get the votes. So I think you're living in a reality where maybe the Lloyd Noble Center gets renovated, or maybe they find out a different solution and they build an arena somewhere else. I don't know. But that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. As for bringing in a young coach to bring some energy and stuff, I think that's great. And I think that Houston makes a lot of sense when you think about Kelvin Sampson and obviously his son Kellen, you would think would be in the mix for the job. Quantus White would be in, I would lean more towards him maybe than a Kellen Sampson, as much as I love Kellen. But I don't know.
What about Hollis Price?
Hollis
He's another
Price,
guy that's down on that staff.
I think there's those three you would say make a lot of sense, and I could get behind any three. If they ended up hiring any of those three guys, I'm on board. But you've intrigued me with the idea of Will Wade. To answer the thread titles question,
I'm all in on Will Wade. Let's get as dirty as possible.
Look, I think that you look at, I've been trying to, figure out what does OU need to do to get to the level of some of these other SEC programs. And Auburn and Alabama, I think, are good examples of programs that are football first, right? Those are football athletic departments, and they have figured out a way to elevate their basketball programs. And Alabama hit a home run with Nate Oates a few years ago, and he's been amazing. So I think you could go that route. Maybe you go hire, Brian Hodginson, who was a Nate Oates assistant for a long time at Alabama, now is, turned around the program at Arkansas State. I think that'd be a great option. Or you can go the Auburn route, hire kind of a scumbag like a Will Wade, and
the only reason there's a connotation there is because he.
And I don't even think he's that big of a scumbag.
Got in trouble with the NCAA, right? He got fired from LSU, but I do like the fact that he has done it. He's built it.
Yeah.
At LSU, which comparable football-wise, I think everybody knows how the Tiger fans, they love their football down there. We got a firsthand experience this past year at Tiger Stadium. So I don't know.
And LSU is also known in the SEC to not have a ton of NIL money. Will Wade, now he was breaking the rules, was winning a lot of basketball games
Sure.
and can recruit.
Sure.
And I think can get people to give him money to go get good players. And I just, everywhere he's been, he's won a lot of basketball games. I don't think Oklahoma will do it because of his past with the NCAA, but I think that would be an electric hire that maybe the fan base could get behind.
He certainly, and I think, in a sense, I think it would help out Joe Castiglione, who's under a bunch of heat right now, to go out and kind of put his balls on the line and say, I don't care that he's gotten into a little bit of trouble before. Yeah. The guy is a MF good coach, all right?
I think that Josie could use a lot of maybe turning the heel a little bit and going a different direction than maybe he's gone in the past.
Now, with that said, I love Kellen Sampson. I love Quantas White. I love Hollis Price. I do think that this hire is going to be obviously big. They need to find some continuity, or they need to find something in terms of the OU basketball program right now. Why not generate some interest? On the other side of that, too, Will Wade's been a head coach, and there's going to be other candidates that have been head coaches before. I think that's the only thing that when you look at the resume that any of the Houston guys would have is they just haven't been a head coach before.
Yep.
And I understand Kellen's a head coach in waiting for his father, Kelvin. They have a phenomenal program down at Houston. I think that, there is a little bit of reality here, too, that is Oklahoma built to be a better job than what Houston could offer in the future. I think that's something that you would have to think about. Yep. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how Kellen feels about that. I don't know how Hollis feels about that. I don't know how Quantas feels about that. But there's no doubt I would love to see some of those guys back on the sidelines in Norman.
It'd be awesome.
It'd be great.
It'd be great.
It'd be great. All right, let's go to numero dos coming in for Sooner B. This is in regards to the Dari Nowkhah discussion that, certainly hit the national airwaves on Saturday after the embarrassing performance, after the embarrassing way that Oklahoma lost the game. He gave it to the Oklahoma fans pretty good for not showing up, right? This comes in from Sooner B, though. It's in response to Outlaw 1428. He's right about baseball sport. Got to keep the momentum on that sport, especially in SEC play. OU fans have every right to be apathetic towards hoops. And Sooner B says, you're right that they do, but there are other arenas where fans have the right to feel apathetic about their hoops teams, but they don't. From the outside looking in, it appears that OU fans are generally an apathetic crowd at games. Even in OU football, there are games that they have to be coaxed into bringing it, and to be fair, they occasionally do. The OU fan base is at an elite level in its expectations and criticisms of its teams, which I don't have a problem with. But as far as game day experience and intensity of its fan base, OU is in the middle of the pack, and it doesn't matter if the team is good or not. George?
I think I said this earlier, I think everybody in this situation is right. Yeah. Like, I think Dari Nowkhah is right about the OU fan base, and we've talked about that for a while now, where it just lacks support sometimes. Sure. And I think especially around basketball. Now, I think we've also seen some great crowds at basketball games when OU is really good. We've also seen some really piss poor crowds when OU is just okay or is almost good. And that's somewhat unacceptable. And I think that Dari's point about, hey, it doesn't matter if you're good or not in the SEC, fans show up at other schools. And I think that's true to a degree. I know South Carolina was a big example that was used where, they're the worst team in the conference right now, and they had a ton of fans at their game this past weekend. So I understand that. I also understand the OU fans are like, why support a program that continues to fall flat on its face year over year? And I think that that's the hard part, is whereas I don't see the wrong for either side. I think that the fan base support could be a lot better. I think OU's job of marketing the team could be a hell of a lot better. And obviously, I think the team itself and the program itself can just be better. I mean, if OU was, a ranked team right now, I think the arena would be pretty full. I don't think it would be some raucous, amazing crowd because it's just never really been that, but I do think that we've seen it where if the team's good, fans come and support it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think that, the one thing, and I think it kind of became a little bit of a bigger story than really in an actuality of what it was over the weekend was like the baseball attendance. I think everybody saw the Noble Duty tweet that was out there with the opening day attendance at baseball games. You're talking about LSU packing in 11,456. Mississippi State had over 10,000. Arkansas had over 9,000. A&M had over 8,000. South Carolina had over 7,000.
And OU's only holds, what, 3,000?
Yeah, it's about 3,000. And I do think that the fan base will continue to come as as the season ramps up. And believe me, I was sitting in a press box all weekend. I'm not going to judge anybody for not going out to Eldell Mitchell for a 3-game series against Lehigh when it was 40 degrees, basically. You played a doubleheader on Friday. But you do look at the number, and 832 people as compared to Alabama, who was the second lowest at 4,171. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. And I think that part of it is Eldell Mitchell's an old ballpark. It's not very big. It was cold as hell this weekend. So
there's some built-in excuses, and and believe me, I'm not losing sleep over attendance for the first weekend of the season.
I also think there's a lot of bitching and complaining out there from the OU fan base right now, and it's somewhat embarrassing, and it's not it's not everybody. I don't want to make it sound like that. I think there's a lot of people that have level heads about what's going on, but it's even like today, Cole Kubelik goes on Andy Staples' show, and it's OU fans are giving him hell about his evaluation. Well, it just feels like anything right now, OU fans like to look at the negative.
It's a very unhappy fan base right now, and rightfully so. I mean, this whole thing has been F to a certain extent when you're talking about the men's athletics with football and the way that they fell on their face in the first season, with the basketball team and what they've continued to, pick up from where football left off, and just kind of embarrassing the university. And this is going to be a problem that is going to persist until it gets better, until they win football games.
Yeah, I think football is at the heart of all of this.
100%. 100%.
I do hope people go out and support the baseball team, because I think the baseball team is going to be very good this year.
The baseball team is going to be very fun. We saw Kyson Witherspoon obviously make his season debut. We saw Malachi Witherspoon make his season debut. All those guys made their debuts, but I thought they were really impressive. That pitching staff is going to be extremely, extremely good. And the women's basketball team, obviously, they got a couple of home games coming up. They need to be supported.
And if they make if they host an NCAA regional, I hope OU fans show up for that group, because look, I know that you
can bitch and complain about everything that's going on with the athletic department. The one thing that they did do right was hire Jenny Baranczyk.
She's been awesome.
She's turned that thing around. They're very, very competitive.
And she's begging people to get out to the LNC, and if they host a regional, you need to be there, because they're a fun group to watch. Now they turn the ball over a lot sometimes, but they shoot the hell out of it, and they're fun. They play kind of with that Billy Ball type pace.
Sure, getting up and down the floor. I don't think that Billy Tubbs' team's turned it over as much,
no.
But we'll save that conversation for another day. We already had it on the Hoops Report that you can see here on the Scoop YouTube channel. All right, let's continue on. Couple more to get through here from the Crimson Corner this week. From Thompson Sooner. At this point, I need reassurance that OU will be relevant nationally. Struggling to see the light at the end of the tunnel right now. Sort of feels like everything rests on Arbuckle and Mateer's shoulders right now. Thompson Sooner, you said it very accurately. There's a lot that rests on the shoulders of 29-year-old Ben Arbuckle, as well as first-year quarterback John Mateer.
Yeah, I mean, next we've said it over and over again, and we're going to say it a lot the next few months, but a lot is riding on those two guys, and if they can find a way to help Oklahoma win, just 9 games next year, even 8 games, it would almost feel like a step in the right direction considering where this thing's been. I don't know if everybody feels that way, but I certainly do, especially with that schedule. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that those two, have been brought in to kind of save the program, and it's starting to feel like it's not just football. It's everything. It's the athletic department. It's Brent Venables' job. It's possibly Joe Castiglione's job. Like, that's how much is riding on those two guys, and it's kind of an unfair amount of pressure on those two. But it is what it is.
That's why you make over millions of dollars a year. That's why you kind of sign up for it if you're going to participate at the biggest of the big.
The one thing I will say to Thompson Sooners, first point there is, make me feel like OU's going to be nationally relevant again. It may not be next year. Maybe they fall flat on their face again next year. Maybe if OU brings in a new basketball coach, it doesn't work out in his first year, and maybe Brent's fired in football, and maybe it's a tough season again next year. But history has told us that Oklahoma will always be nationally relevant, And I know there's a lot of people out there that are saying, well, they should have never gone to the SEC. It's been a disaster. One, it's only been, a 1-year sample size so far. So let's hold off on that. But as long as OU's in the SEC, they're going to be nationally relevant. Are they going to be as dominant as they were in the 70s and 80s and even 90s in basketball, right? Early 2000s, in football and basketball? Probably not,
sure.
Right? Because the competition is more, there's more parity than ever, I feel like, right now in college athletics, in basketball and football. But if you're playing in either the SEC or Big Ten over the next 10 to 20 years, you're going to be a nationally relevant program. And I believe that. And I know that Oklahoma has the money to continue to compete. Are they a big dog when it comes to that? No, but they're in the top 15, top 20 nationally, top 10 really in revenue generating athletics. So is it with this regime? I don't know that.
Sure.
I don't know that answer. But I do think that, yes, it's been a really tough year. Next year might be a tough year, but eventually Oklahoma, history has shown us time and again, will be nationally relevant.
Got to get to work. They got to start digging themselves out of this hole that they've built and the embarrassment that's come with our new SEC neighbors. You mentioned fiscally where everything's at. You wrote about it this earlier or today on SoonerScoop.com if you want to read all the numbers that go into it. I'm obviously not the math guy around here. That's why we brought you in, George. What can you tell us? You got the documents. Obviously, Oklahoma, it sounds like they did clear a revenue from 2023.
Yeah, they had, what was it, like almost $209 million in revenue generated this past year, $2.6 million profit, which is really good. The highest since 2018. I know a lot of people don't care about that, but they are one of the only, athletic departments in the country to generate revenue. Now, how much does that really matter in today's college athletics? I don't know the answer to that.
Sure.
But OU is making money. They're continuing. I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, nobody's going to donate money because the team suck. They got $73 million in contributions this past year, which is the highest ever, $13 million more than 2023. So those are good things. I know there's a lot of people that are not happy with the athletic department, but in the fiscal year of 2024, they did pretty good.
And this is from July 1 of 2023 through June 30th of 2024,
Correct.
Just to be clear with everybody.
So that would be the 2023 football season, because I know there's been some confusion on, well, how come ticket sales were down in 2024? It was the first year in the SEC. Well, this is for the 2023 football season. So the ticket sales are down from 2023 from 2022. So I think that might clarify some of that.
Another one from Thompson Sooner. He's always an active member on the Crimson Corner. How can ticket sales be down to 2 million while we also maintained our home sellout streak? I'm sure there's a reason, but I'm not smart enough to know. Neither am I, Thompson Sooner. George, what do you have to say?
Well, if you read the story, it does clarify that it was the 2023 football season. So that's why I do believe in 2022, part of the reason why it was maybe higher than 2023 football season, you had a new coach. There was a lot of excitement within the program. You only played 6 home games in 2023. I don't know how many they played in 2022, but obviously this last year they played 7 home games in 2024. I think you're going to see a huge increase in the ticket sale numbers for next year, for the fiscal year of 2025, because it was the first year in the SEC. Ticket prices went up and they played 7 home games. So you're going to see that number, I think, kind of rise quite a bit.
And we'll get those numbers about a year from now, correct?
Yep. Usually I get those around end of January, early February of each year.
What a lovely Valentine's Day gift. I'm sure that Aaron was happy that you were running through all the numbers over the weekend. All right, let's continue on. There was some big news on Sunday evening in terms of Oklahoma staff. Kevin Wilson, former Tulsa head coach, obviously had a run with Oklahoma as offense coordinator, went up to Indiana, been a head coach. It's good to see him back. It's good to see Kevin Wilson back in Norman, Oklahoma. Kerry Burdock had put on the Crimson Corner that he has already started as a senior offensive analyst. Overall, it seems like that's a good thing to have. Good to have him around.
We kind of talked about this, I want to say, during the football season, when it looked like, obviously, they had fired Seth Luttrell and were looking for their next offensive coordinator. I remember, Eddie, I don't remember which press conference it was, but Brent Venables had brought up Kevin Wilson unprompted and was like, I think he's one of the best, offensive coordinators and offensive minds in the country. And that had us thinking, would they consider him for the offensive coordinator job? Sure. Obviously, they went with Ben Arbuckle, went young. But we kind of said, well, they should bring him in as an analyst if TU were to move on. TU moves on from him. He's been around a lot of different places. Obviously, Tulsa the last couple of years as the head coach, which I think is good experience, having somebody that's been a head coach kind of helping Ben Arbuckle, but also his time at Ohio State. A lot of success there. Obviously, a lot of success at Oklahoma, was a head coach at Indiana. So I think that all of those things, this is a no-brainer hire.
I think it also, too, and maybe this is the most obvious comment that is out there, can't be a bad guy to have around the offensive office for somebody like a Ben Arbuckle that's about to navigate. And we've talked about how much pressure is going to be on him and the offense to perform. Can't be a bad thing to have him around to be able to just bump some questions off of.
Well, just game planning.
Sure.
I mean, this is a guy that is, respected as one of the best game planners and understanding offenses and reading defenses and coming up with different schemes and all of those things that I think that is going to be perfect to work hand in hand, not only with Ben Arbuckle, but Brent Venables. I think Brent, they worked together from 2002 to 2010 at Oklahoma, obviously very respected. But I think that's where it's going to be the biggest thing. Cause I think there's some, confusion on what does an analyst actually do. A lot of what an analyst does and what like Kevin Johns did last year for Oklahoma, Matt Wells a couple years ago, is they help with game planning and they help with game management. And now that they can have headsets on game days, this is something that I think that, he can communicate with Brent during games, hey, maybe take a timeout here. And especially now with Brent, calling the defense, I think that having somebody like Kevin Wilson on the offensive side helping Ben Arbuckle, I think could be huge.
Kyler's headband, he wanted to know, how much does the Kevin Wilson hire help with game management? I have to think that him being on the sidelines, and as you said, an analyst can do a lot more today than they could have 2 years ago.
And he can coach, and he can coach in practices, I believe. He can coach during games. Like, he can help in all those different facets. And when you talk about the positions he's coached, offensive line and tight end, two positions that I think Oklahoma would like to use his services. He knows Bill Beatenbow well. I know that they're actually pretty close friends. So and
obviously coached Joe John Finley when he was here.
And so I think all of it helps. And even going back to, to answer that question, you go back to, I think it was the 2023 season, Matt Wells was the offensive analyst and Brent was calling the defense that year, right? And Matt Wells was, helping Jeff Lebby and Brent Venables, kind of manage the game because Brent was over there helping the defense, while the offense was out there or doing whatever he needed to do, help on, be the defensive coordinator. I think that's going to be a huge help. Having somebody like Kevin Wilson, who has been a head coach at Indiana and Tulsa, knows when to call timeouts, 2-minute drill, all of those things, and you pair that with a young offensive coordinator who I think Ben Arbuckle can handle those things, but just having another voice on the microphone, I think is just going to be a huge help in terms of their process on game day.
At the end of the day, you're getting a guy in a Wes Goodwin as well as Kevin Wilson to come in, and they're basically helping. I mean, I don't think that it's a bad thing at the end.
And you're not
day.
paying them a lot of money. I'm going to assume you're not paying Kevin Wilson a whole lot of money because Tulsa still has to pay his buyout, which I think it was only like $3 million or something like that. It wasn't very high, but whatever it was, they're paying that, so OU doesn't have to pay him a ton of money.
It's a good deal,
all
things considered. I believe we have one more question in terms of Kevin Wilson. This from B-Easy. Wilson is an elite offensive mind. Having him around the building game plan won't be a bad thing as long as he stays away from recruiting, actually coaching players, and isn't making any offensive play calls. Yeah, I disagree.
I disagree on almost all of those fronts.
Obviously, he's not going to be calling the offense. That's been Arbuckle's job.
And I wouldn't mind if he called the offense. He's proven to be a damn good offensive coordinator.
Sure.
I don't know about his recruiting. I can't speak on that. I have no idea.
I think some people are still caught in 2008 and feel like he cost them a national championship, which he didn't. It would have helped having DeMarco Murray. That was one of the better offenses.
He was one of the best offensive coordinators Oklahoma's had in the last 20-some years.
No doubt.
I also think that he was a really good coach. When you look at position coach and players that played underneath him, they speak very highly of the way that he coached them. And so I think he's a tremendous asset for this coaching staff.
Talked to a number of those guys here the week of the Tulsa game 2 years ago, right? When Oklahoma went up to the 9-1-8 and went against them. I think Sam and some of those other guys.
Yeah.
He recruited, as Carrie mentioned in our ear, recruited the Kansas, Missouri, Mocan area really well. Obviously, got guys like Brody Eldridge. They need some more of those guys in the program.
And he's been around the game so long, he can evaluate talent.
Sure.
I trust his evaluations of talent. So, and being in Tulsa the last couple of years, maybe he's built some connections in the high school ranks. That's obviously a place that has a lot of talent down in Tulsa.
One of his 20 kids, Kevin Wilson's, they have to be getting to the age of college nowadays too. Maybe he has a next couple of offensive linemen that come help Bill beat them both. So make sure you get your questions in. You can join Soonerscoop.com right now, the biggest community online for all things Sooners. And believe me, this hasn't been the most fun year. I think that's pretty obvious, but we're going to still be doing it. And we're now into softball. They had a really good weekend at the Getterman Classic coming out of the weekend.
Breaking
Baseball
news, they
had
are
a
still
really good
very
start.
good.
Yeah, I think the demise of Patty Gasso's program may be greatly exaggerated. I think they're still number 3 in the country as of today. So good start for them. Good start they moved up to number 2. I didn't know that. They moved up to number 2 from number 3.
I think Texas is
over
one,
the course
right?
of the weekend. Texas number 1 now. Florida moved down. I think they got
Florida
upset
lost,
by Duke, right, over the weekend. So good start for Skip Johnson. Happy birthday to Skip Johnson. It's his birthday today. They go down to the DFW area on
big weekend
Wednesday, and then a big weekend, all things considered, down at Round Rock against Virginia, as well as Minnesota on Friday, Virginia, and Oregon State as well. So both Oregon State and Virginia, both in the top 10. Virginia got upset in the opener down in Puerto Rico, but I believe, if I remember correctly without having it in front of me, I want to say Oregon State ran through their but their tournament down in Arizona. So I don't know if anybody saw the picture of it, but it looked like there was 15,000 Oregon State fans down in the desert for that. I think they've been doing it for the last 15 years. So make sure you get your questions into the Crimson Corner. We'll try and maybe round back at the end of the week, get a couple more questions, because I'm sure there's going to be something that pops up.
There always is.
In the Sooner universe. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. Another edition of Around the Corner has come and went. We'll see you next time.